Committee meeting. It is May 18, 2017. Welcome. And we have a guest amongst us, a senior student at Upper Dublin High School, Sean Starosta, who is an intern with Dr. Wheeler for the next month. And we welcome you to the Finance Committee. So this is the call to order, and tonight I don't believe we have any presentations, but we have announcements and communications. Ms. Bray?
Yes, there is one announcement I'd like to make. Something came up after the agenda was published. We're going to need to make a purchase. We're going to need to make a purchase for some software related to grading. And I just wanted to let the board and the public know that I will need to sign a contract ahead of time, and this will be discussed at, I believe, Education Committee, and will be ratified, if you will, please. The software purchase will be about $7,350. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. Because if I don't sign the contract, they won't make this, the programming change, which we need for grading.
Okay, thank you. Any minutes to discuss?
Yes, I believe the April 20th Finance Committee meeting minutes have been circulated and are available for comment. If you would please review those. They will be approved at the June 5th legislative meeting.
All right. We can move on to Finance Committee reports and recommendations. Again, we go to Mrs. Bray.
The first discussion point or recommendation this evening would be the long talked about and planned transfer of $1,458,669 from the general fund to the capital projects fund for future facilities projects. It's the budget for the current year. It's been budgeted, and again, we've discussed it all year long. This would just be the board approval to make that transfer.
Any questions or comments from committee members or board members? Okay, I think we'll move that forward.
Thank you.
Sure. Better? Next, student activity account trial balances. That comes up every meeting. Is there anything special that we're talking about?
We look at the high school activity account every month, and it's filed for audit or review due to the size of the high school account. The middle school, as well as the 4 elementaries, we usually look at on a quarterly basis. We missed December 31st, so we have put before the committee and the entire board both of those quarterly reports for, again, our 4 elementary schools and our middle school.
Any questions about that? Okay, very good. How about budgetary transfers?
This is the second time this fiscal year that we have proposed some budgetary transfers, a smaller amount, but in our effort to move these along and show all the changes, just as what Mr. V was discussing in our previous operations committee, when there are budget changes and transfers, we have before you I think just about a dozen proposed transfers. So if you have any questions over them, certainly let me know. And this would be for approval on June 5th.
Those are just accounting, basically just to satisfy accounting rules. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was easy. Okay. Appointment of solicitor.
every year, the board needs to approve the solicitor for the school district of Upper Dublin, and it's recommended that the appointment of Kenneth Roos of Whistler as the solicitor for 2016-17, the annual basic compensation of $15,600. All services not covered by the basic compensation will be in accordance with the memorandum that is attached about the services. This firm has provided continued service since 1974, and of course the expenses would be paid out of the 2017-18 general fund.
Is this the same, or is there any increase? It looked like it's the same, but I don't remember.
It's the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think we'll move that along for legislative. Next, commitment to health insurance rate stabilization fund.
A few years ago, the board approved a rate stabilization fund for healthcare insurance, and at this time of year, at a legislative meeting, the board needs to approve the increase or addition to a rate stabilization fund. Currently, there's $1.1 million of our general fund that has been set aside or committed for rate stabilization. Now, later on in the meeting, we're going to be going over changes, and we will note and have the conversation about the need to pay $595,000 to balance out the current year, 16-17, but we won't determine the amount, or the amount will not be determined, and it doesn't have to be done in October after the audit, as is stated here. Over the last 4 years, the district has experienced significant rate fluctuation for medical and prescription costs, and so an additional commitment may make sense, but we'll see how we land after the audit.
Do you have an estimate of what you're going to recommend?
If we have the additional funds, I would certainly recommend another month. Right now, we have approximately 2 months set aside, and with the full knowledge that our balance in the consortium trust will be at zero, I would like to see another $600,000 or $650,000 added to that.
So we want to add $600,000, and we also have something like a $500,000 bill.
$595,000.
Oh, so like 6,000,
Yeah,
600,000.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, if we have the funds and we can pay that from somewhere else, it'd be better to pay that and to add the rate stabilization rather than to pay it out of what we already have in the rate stabilization, I guess.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, the practice with the rate stabilization fund is to pass or approve the addition to it and then wait until after the audit is complete to determine if that's financially feasible or comfortable. So, in other words, it's a two-step process.
Yeah.
We do this in June, and then we'll be back in October or November.
Okay. So this is just for discussion right now, but if we say we agree with that, then you'll put the first part on as a motion in June? Is that what?
I would recommend that we go ahead and move this forward for approval on June the 5th.
So there would actually be a motion, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
There would actually be a motion at the next legislative
Okay, that was my question.
Yes.
Yeah.
transfer
And we
some
did this
amount.
last year. We
But-
did this
We've,
right,
last
we
year.
did
we've
the
done
same
it the
thing
last 2
Okay.
years.
Last
Yeah.
year, too.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but
Yeah.
you would see almost verbatim the motion.
Okay.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments on that, we'll move to the next subject is the general fund budget summary.
Would you like for this to be put up on the screen? Do you mind? Okay, thank you. So what we will be seeing in just a moment on the screen for everyone are the changes since March 14th and to expenditures and revenues, excuse me, as well, in estimates. And of course, obviously, the ones that we are looking at are the ones proposed adjustments for 5/18/17. Delinquent real estate taxes, I believe you will recall at the board meeting, I made a comment that our delinquent real estate taxes are not coming in. The percentage of collection needed to be adjusted. We're following up, trying to find out, as I indicated then, why the collection rate's down. But at this point, I would recommend that we decrease the amount of revenue by $155,000. For the current year, I just alluded to the only expenditure that we would suggest that needs to be adjusted, that we will plan to pay before the year closes, maybe not by June 30th, but by July or early August, when they've had a chance to totally reconcile for the year, that being the Bucksmont Consortium. Right now, the projected amount, and that was after 9 months of activity, was $595,429, which we just discussed a bit, and regarding a commitment of rate stabilization fund.
Okay, where are you? What row, or give me a row number?
Row 81.
Thank you.
I'm looking at paper. I'll have to go to my...
Okay.
That's it, 81.
I just thought we'd be at the top.
Looking for 17/18 real estate tax, there are two adjustments. On May 8th, it was voted that the tax increase for next year would not be 2.5%. It would be reduced to 2.29%, which translates into $147,556 less than what we were projecting at that point in time. However, that is partly compensated for an increased assessment base for the school district of Upper Dublin, producing additional revenue of $106,653. Transportation subsidy, I'm sure we could have a spirited conversation around the table about whether we should take it out or not. There's nothing definitive coming from Harrisburg, but what I'm hearing from colleagues and reading is that there's going to be an impact on our budget, so we have made that reduction to transportation subsidy. So at this point, those are the proposed changes and the impacts on fund balance for both this year and next.
Do you still have access funds in? I mean, that seems a little bit under threat also.
Agreed, but yes, I've not changed the access funds or
Right.
even the federal funds.
Well, that's federal funds, right? I mean, does it come through?
I'm
Does
sorry.
it show state because it flows through, or is it in our federal?
That's actually in federal funds, isn't it, access? It is in federal funds.
Okay.
And what I should have said is the title funds.
Okay.
We're not sure where that money is going to land, but it is a smaller amount, so we're not cutting it at this point in time.
The increased assessment of $106,000 is that an actual number through some particular date, or is that a projection of where we think the assessment is going to be at some point next year?
I believe the date of that is April the 28th.
Of this year. Okay.
It's actual.
That changes monthly? Or
It
is
does.
Yeah,
And,
could go up again.
and hopefully it
That
will.
was my question.
It will.
Are we
Yeah, I
projecting?
think it
Are
will.
we including a projection of increased assessment
Correct, that
next
was the
year, or-
question, right.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Right.
Not at this point.
Right.
One other point that I do want to make, and it's not on here yet, you may recall in the fall, in fact it was, I believe, in October, one of the hub properties, remember every year we've been budgeting $550,000 that we need to pay back for assessment appeals, as well as a $250,000 credit. One of the properties, 515 West Pennsylvania, transferred at the end of June of 2015. The new owners, and appropriately, I consulted with our attorneys, insisted that they pay the taxes because they weren't sure that they were privy or entitled to the refund. And we've been having, and today I spoke with our solicitor about that issue, and it's $131,000. Most likely, before the end of the year, we'll either be asking the board to commit that amount of money also on the general fund. I'm going to be talking with the auditor or emailing to see if it would be more appropriate to put it on the balance sheet as a payable. But right now, attorney-to-attorney conversation is going on, and that's another piece that we're looking at. I also want you to know that we've asked Berkheimer to give us an estimate as to where we would land, and it's in writing. They said they would not recommend that we stretch those lines anymore. However, I'm also happy to report that over the last week or so, we've had some nice receipts coming in. So we'll continue to look at expenditures and revenues to see if there's anything else we can tweak or need to tweak before the June 5th meeting.
And
So- oh, go ahead.
sorry, the retirements that are listed are still the same two that we had as
That
of
is
the last
correct.
meeting? Okay.
We've not had any more letters.
Right.
I was just going to ask if these last changes, this last portion, 5, 8, 17, are since we published the preliminary final, or are they proposed final? I'm sorry.
These are since the proposed final.
Will they actually go in, or is this just going to keep rolling into next year?
They would go into the final budget
Okay.
presentation because that information wasn't readily available at the time, and
Right.
I did ask for some input as to how we would want to handle, particularly the $595,000.
Okay.
They weren't included. And by the way, Ms. Baldessano has the PDE 2028 ready to go. We may very well post it tomorrow if we can. If I can remember to get all the signatures tonight.
Those two?
Yeah.
You have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. I'm waiting for the committee. You guys good? Okay, I brought with me the May 8th PowerPoint or slideshow. I'm just trying to confirm, starting on row 69, those are the changes since May 8th. Okay?
Correct.
So we were at 5.9 in 16, 17. So it's close. I mean, there was 600,000 less.
You're talking about ending fund balance?
Yeah, I'm talking about any fund balance. I'm okay basically with 16, 17, but I'm trying to figure out what happened in 17, 18 because we were at we're at 2.8, 2.86. We're down to 2.024. So just help me in terms of where the 800,000 went, because I don't.
The changes from the current year, the decreases from the current year, have to go over and be pulled over into next year. So the impact that the $600,000 that you were just discussing about, the decrease for the current year, needs to go over into the next column. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that will impact our beginning balance for 17, 18.
Right. So
That's why it's down.
right. So it went from 2.86 now to 2.024,
Correct.
and that's what you'll point out at the next finance meeting,
Or at the next legislative
legislative
meeting. Yes.
And also what else has changed between now and then.
Correct. We will have one more, as you pointed out, although it'll be tight, we should have one more assessment. Look at the assessment for the school district. We'll be watching the EIT and, well, all the revenues and some expenditures, too.
Yeah. And again, if for the legislative meeting, can you, right now we're projecting a 5.2 fund balance in 16, 17.
Uncommitted fund balance.
Uncommitted.
Yes, because there's
Just-
an additional $2 million
Right.
that's committed.
Just let me know at this point last year, what were we projecting the fund balance to be in 16, 17? It's just, and, I ask that question a lot. And just a point to make that, and we want to see that happening. We want to see conservative
I'm
budgeting from you, and we want to see always,
And the amount was, I
Plus.
believe, around 2.4 million. Jen's looking it up to give us the exact number. I think it was 2.45 off the top of my
Yeah.
head. And that did not include, again, the committed fund balance,
Correct.
which we know exactly what that is.
yes. Yes.
So it did grow, but it's conservative budgeting, as you stated.
Right, but, okay.
As of 5/9, the number was, I was off 200,000, I'm sorry, $2,627,229.
2.6.
Yes,
So we doubled it.
we did.
Oh, my God. The 5.2, okay.
And another point is
Committed.
we doubled it, but then there's money that's
Committed.
been put in, well, it's committed in the general fund, but then there's also, the board's been terrific about transferring money to the capital projects, planning ahead.
Yeah.
Where are we in capital projects at this point?
That's in
Hold on.
the treasurer's
Yes.
report, yeah. Yep.
She has it.
That used to be a separate report. It's now part of the
Treasurer's
treasurer's
report.
report.
So on May 8th, just to remind everyone, the board approved the transfer of $250,000 plus $436,000, or a total of $686,600. So including those for the capital projects would be $3.9 million, $3,948,760, and then there still remains in the debt service fund about $2.5 million.
Okay, thank you. And that doesn't include, or does include, the 1.458 that we just talked about earlier today?
No.
That does not.
Okay.
If I may just make one other general comment. I've talked with our financial advisors, and I'm just wondering what some of the national scenes are doing to interest rates, and people are fleeing or moving from equities into bonds. So the bond market may be treating us a little more favorably in the short term. And so we continue to monitor. You may recall that we plan to do the one big bond refunding. We've been looking at doing the second refunding. The savings had really been negated, but we're starting to perhaps see that it would make some sense in the fall to go ahead and do that second large refunding. Stay tuned.
All right, thank you. The next topic is additional items for the June 14th legislative agenda.
That agenda is extremely long. You may, I just want to remind everybody that I'm planning on putting all the items that were discussed tonight on the June 5th agenda. But on the June 14th agenda, we have the renewals and the approvals of all the insurance policies, as well as awarding of a lot of bids, approximately 14 awards. And at that time, we hope to have the school district's list of donations to be in compliance with board policy. So last year, I think that agenda was like 22 or 23 motions, and we don't have a finance committee meeting before that time, so there'll all be no new motions. It's just an FYI.
I think you weren't there.
I know that's Dr. Resnick's favorite meeting.
All right, so not much to discuss on those items until we see them.
That's correct.
June 14th. I think we're up to community input. Anyone from the community would like to address the Finance Committee, please feel free to come forward, just stating your name and what part of the township you're from.
My name's Jennifer Majesic, and I'm afraid I'm going to touch any of this. Is this okay? All right. Thank you for letting me speak tonight with my questions and my concerns. I've been a return resident of Upper Dublin since 1990 and a 1984 graduate of Upper Dublin High School. Let me give you a little background as to why I'm bringing my concerns and my questions to the Finance Committee. I have a 10th grade son named Anderson, who's a member of the Upper Dublin High School water polo team. Before I go, please do me a favor. Go to a water polo game. It is one of the most amazing things you have ever seen. It will leave a lasting impression on you. I describe it as soccer in the water with wrestling. It's unbelievable. So anyway, this is a sport that requires immense amount of physical strength, commitment, and guidance. Our teams have been receiving this guidance from our head coach, Chris Yanni, math and Latin teacher at the high school. This brings me to the reason why I'm here tonight. As you're aware, the Upper Dublin polo programs began in Upper Dublin in 2013 with the varsity boys and JV boys teams. 2 years later, in 2015, the programs more than doubled and a varsity girls team was created. October of last year, the school board officially approved funding for the water polo programs. Throughout this immense 5-year expansion, our head coach, Coach Yanni, and his assistants' unit of pay has not increased. Currently, Coach Yanni receives 35 units of pay, and his assistant receives 18. This payment scale was derived 5 years ago, with only one varsity, one JV, and half of the amount of participants. When we compare the water polo coach's unit of pay to that of the other coaches in Upper Dublin, there's a huge discrepancy. Currently, high school coaches head coaches receive 45 units and their assistants receive 30. This does not take into account that Coach Yanni is coaching 2 varsity teams and 1 JV team. The water polo budget of almost $20,000 that was approved in 2016, already allots for the increase. We're not asking for any additional payment or funds out of our current budget. I'm perplexed, and I need just your guidance and your knowledge to understand why this is occurring since the water polo program was funded last year. It seems obvious to me that when you compare the payment and the units of pay in comparison to the fairness of the other coaches, it doesn't quite make sense. The current water polo budget allows for this increase. So my question is basically, how can we do this? And when can it happen? That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other community members?
My name is Sarah, and I am from Fort Washington.
Sarah, your list?
Regan, Sarah Regan. I'm here to talk about the desire for a girls' JV water polo team. In the September 20th, 2016 issue of the Ambler Gazette, it was reported about the proposal to fund the Upper Dublin High School water polo team. Quote, according to the proposal, the boys' combined teams and the girls' combined varsity and anticipated JV team would each be capped at 30 members. The cost, without transportation, had been estimated at $19,675 for the 2016-2017 school year, unquote. On October 10th, 2016, the school board approved the proposed funding of the high school program. I was at the Finance Committee meeting in September, and I had asked the question regarding the amount of the budget. As the treasurer of the Water Polo Booster Club, I had proposed a smaller, bare-bones budget for 3 teams, the boys' varsity and JV teams and the girls' varsity team. I noticed that the school district's proposed budget was for 4 teams, including a girls' JV team. Since, at that time, we did not have a girls' JV team and didn't anticipate one for the 2017 season, I asked the Finance Committee why the budget reflected the cost of a girls' JV team when we didn't have one. Dr. Wheeler directly addressed my question by stating that in order to be fair, the school district must give the same consideration and opportunity to the water polo team as other high school sports. On that point, a girls' JV team must be included in the proposed budget. To Dr. Wheeler's point of equal opportunity, I would like to mention that according to Title IX, quote, no person in the U.S. shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. We're now at that point where we have the participation that would warrant a girls' JV team that was referenced in the district's approval. A team needs minimum 7 girls to play. The boys had both varsity and JV teams with 20 total players last year and 17 in previous years. This past year, the girls had 16. We expect a total of 19 for next season based on current players, 8th grade participation, and the spring league polo. A girls' JV team would not increase the cost for suits, coaches' pay, transportation, or officials, because if the girls are not on the JV team, they'll remain on the varsity team. With such a large varsity team, some girls will not get to see any play in games. Participation in the games is crucial for the development and putting into practice those skills learned at practice. And by the way, other teams in our district that have girls' JV teams are North Penn, Souderton, Penn Ridge, Wissahickon, Springfield, Perkiomen Valley, and Upper Perk. So if we have enough participants to form a girls' JV team, if it doesn't cost any more money to have a girls' JV team, and if a girls' JV team was already anticipated by the district, will the district now commit to approving a girls' JV team for next season? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the community? Okay, so I think this is going to fall into the hands of administration to answer.
Absolutely. The first question, which addressed the units of compensation, that is an item that must be negotiated with the bargaining unit. So I know this has been brought to the attention of our Human Resources Office, and that's where it lies. That's a negotiation with the bargaining unit. So that's not something that the board can automatically move forward. We will have to check with Mr. Sigafus exactly. I was not aware that this question was going to come up tonight, so I'm not prepared to go into real detail. The second question about the adding the team, I think one of the questions that we have to look at is what will happen with pool usage, and we can move forward from there with the question. Now, what I'm hearing is a request for more compensation for the coach, but being told that there would be no additional costs for coaching for a JV team. So again, this is some conversation through our HR office, but I certainly will refer this to Mr. Sigafus. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the committee members?
I'm just curious, is the formation of another team, in this case a junior varsity water polo team, but in the general case, is this a board activity, or is this something that is purely in the administration?
Typically, that would go into the budgetary process, and then it would be approved through the budget.
Okay.
It's not a matter of bringing, when we have a request for a team, bringing that specifically to the board.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, in general, are there any comments from the committee members or Dr. Levinowitz? Okay, Sean, do you have any observations or comments you'd like to make? All right, if there's nothing more before the Finance Committee, we'll adjourn this meeting and just announce that the next Finance Committee meeting will be June 15th, 7 o'clock, or immediately following the Operations Committee meeting. Thank you.
Although, since that will be the day after we pass the budget, we may not have a hot agenda to go over that evening. So we might want to stay tuned
I will
and
be
post
so
on it.
disappointed, but if that occurs, you'll let me know and I'll deal with it.
And we'll certainly let the public know as well on a very timely basis.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I knew it was in the mid-20s.
I'm sitting, minding my own business.